Modelers, how you doing? Right then, back with the Coyote and the what seems to be the longest build ever of a small model aircraft. Other commitments are obviously getting in the way, upon as well as it being cold and wet and damp and horrible. Lack of motivation to get up the shed, you know. But yeah, gave myself a bit of a kick up the arse. Thought get up there today, get this wing finished in this video, which a little bit unusual for me to do a video that is 3 videos long over just finished doing a wing. But as you know, we've been going through the steps and instructions and doing it more as a sort of how to, you know, build the wing following the instructions. Because obviously my mate Chris is supposed to be building one and I thought it might help him. So yeah, a little bit unusual, but we're getting there and we're going to finish this wing today in this video, and then we can move on to the tail parts of the model and the fuselage, get all that done, and then we can do the bit I enjoy the most, which is the covering and finishing. So yeah, let's get you down on the bench, let's get the heater on, let's get this wing built. I'll get another cup of coffee made and we'll get this done and get cracking. So I'll see you down at the bench, guys. Bye bye. Right then, modelers, so what we've got to do is glue together the wingtip bases W14A and wingtip balsa blocks W14, making certain you have a left and right hand side. Cut roughly to shape before gluing to the wingtips. Carve and sand the balsa to a streamlined shape as shown. Okay, so we have parts W14A, which is a plywood part which goes at the bottom of the wingtip, and then we have parts W14, which is a balsa block, which is what we sand. I would imagine the reason for the plywood being at the bottom is so when you're like flying on the slopes and stuff, if you land, catch a wingtip, it's a bit rough or whatever, that'll help to protect that, the bottom of the wing on that tip. So making sure we do the left side, which is the left wing, that obviously goes at the bottom, and then the balsa block goes on top. So what we'll do is we'll lie that on there like so. We'll get a pen, we'll make sure that all lines up nice and flush, and we'll just draw around the plywood part W14A. And then what I'm going to do is apply CA inside of that line, just the same as I do all the time, just leaving a gap so the glue doesn't squeeze out, because we've got to sand this and CA isn't very easy to sand. So we'll put CA in there, plenty of it, and just leave just a very small line, 5 to 10 mil, just inside that pen mark, where that glue will fill into that line but not squeeze out, hopefully. So using the pen line, we'll line up parts W14A onto the balsa block and glue it down. Okay, and just to take off any sticky edge, just a quick misting of activator. Okay. And you can see, even, I don't know if you can see that, even with leaving that gap, I've still got a little bit of CA that's squeezed out. So you'd be surprised how far it will push into the edge of the wood that you're gluing on. Again, if you're not confident with CA, wood glue on that, clamp it, pin it down. come back to it the following day, shape and sand it. I don't want to do that, so CA for me, just makes it quick and easy. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my razor saw and I'm just going to cut away that excess balsa block. Just roughly. Okay, just get a little bit more there. Okay, get rid of those bits. Now I'll take the plane and just plane that roughly to shape. Take a bit more of that excess balsa away from there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is line the wing up on the plan, line up that balsa block, see we'll cut that front bit off, just there. Give that a quick sanding down, that'll help me just line that up with the plan then. Just like that. And then we'll line that wing up on there. Just line up that plywood block with the tip of that leading edge. And then what I'm going to do, take a pen and just mark the shape of that rib onto that balsa block. Okay, that line down there. Okay, so now we'll plane that shape of that rib out of this balsa block. We haven't got to get it exactly how it's got to be, but it's less work to do with the wingtip attached to the wing of the model. So we'll just keep taking that off and working it out. So when we come to the very tip of the wingtip at this point here, we're taking this balsa down pretty much onto this plywood block. That's how thin it's got to go. So we'll just keep planing this down. Okay, that's as much as I'm going to take off that for now. We've got a rough basic shape. It's less work to do while it's attached to the wing. So that we'll put to one side. Get rid of these shavings. Alright, okay. So we've done that. And we move now onto the next page. Cut to length trailing edge parts W21A and glue in place using slow epoxy glue. Trailing edge parts W21A. is that goes on that part of the wing there. Before we glue on parts W21A, which is that, it's the trailing edge of the wing where the wing is solid and the aileron isn't there. What I've done is I've put masking tape at the back and at the front of the wing, so what we can do is plane and sand the trailing edge and the leading edge to shape before we attach the wing Balsa block, and then we can sand it all in one go. So all we do, we just follow the line of the ribs with the plane, okay, and just gently plane off that trailing edge so it follows the same contour as the wing rib. It just helps to protect the ribs during the sanding and planing process. Just keep going. So keeping that wing down flat and just working between the ribs with the sanding block. So I just use like an 80 grit sandpaper to get the balsa down and remove a lot of the material. Then we'll go to a 120 and then a 400 just to finish it off and get it nice and smooth. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. I think we'll check that. Off the masking tape, clean that up. Yeah, and that is pretty much to shape. Look, you can see that where it's just following those ribs. We'll take a little bit more with the finer sandpaper just to clean it up. So what we'll do now, move on to the leading edge and do exactly the same, following the shape of the ribs to get that profile on that leading edge. So now we've shaped, planed and sanded our leading and trailing edges. I'm now going to glue on the wingtip that we sort of took a bit of material off earlier. So to do that, obviously remember we've got plywood part which is our shape. We don't take any off that plywood part. That is the shape of the wingtip. So where the front or the leading edge of that that plywood part W14A is, we line that up with the leading edge of the wingtip and glue it on there. So basically what we'll do, let's move that plan out of the way a little bit. We'll lie the wing, put the wing flat on the board and then offer up that tip flush at the front there with that leading edge, and then glue that onto there, and then once that's dried we can continue to plane and sand that into shape. So again, just so there's no excess CA, I'll just put a mark there, there, there and then there. Okay, so I'll CA that at the front and then glue that on. Give it a second to soak in. Don't hit it straight away with the activator. We only want to take the sticky edges off. Okay. Because that CA will soak into that balsa like a sponge. It'll pull in. I'll give it a chance to pull in. Just flash it off. That'll remove any stickiness around the edges. So what we'll do now is we just continue to plane this into a swept shape all the way through this wingtip. So we just sort of see if we can get this on the camera better for you. I'll move this plan. Don't really need that at the moment. So we'll get that into shot there. Okay. And we just continue to plane this down to a streamlined shape. Going from the top down to the edges and out to the front. Let's move that up a little bit just to get that edge down there. Okay, so we've pretty much got that shape down. Probably as far as we want to go for now. What I tend to do is once I think I'm there, I'll hit it with the sanding block. If I think it's a bit too much for the sanding block, then I'll come back with the plane and take off any more that I think needs to come off. Straight away there, that's coming to our leading edge. So we can just give that a last little bit of a finish up there. We'll take the angle the block more so we're going down towards the edge of the wingtip. Going back now to the trailing edge. Let's get that down there. Remember, the more we sand off, the lighter the plane will be and the better it will fly. Don't sand off too much because it'll look ugly. And if you leave too much on, it'll look ugly too. There we go. That's fairly close for now. We'll compare it with the other one later on, and we'll make any alterations there as we go. So that's that part sorted. Get rid of this excess stuff here. Okay, right, okay. So we come down to part W21A, which is this part here. Now you'll notice that I've already finished the right hand side of the wing off, and I'm doing the left hand side for the purpose of the video. Just to keep the videos short really, I didn't want to do duplicates on the other side of the wing and this side of the wing. So next part is to cut to length the trailing edge parts W21A and glue in place using the slow epoxy glue. Okay, that's that part there. Just use CA. Now the reason I think it says to use a slow epoxy is because I don't think that part of the instructions has been changed since the original kit, which I think was a Ripmax kit, and the ailerons was operated via torsion rods that run through that part. So you'd like sand in a round sort of dome, and then you'd epoxy that on there, and then the torsion bar would run through and move the ailerons up and down like that. But now they've upgraded the kit to mini servos in the wings. So a bit of CA on there, absolutely fine. It doesn't do anything other than the wing bands come over, but we do have a plywood part to put over that to support that and strengthen all that up. So the CA I use, the Mitre Pro CA, is resin strength anyway, so that's absolutely fine for that. Don't need to slow pop, glue that in place with a slow epoxy and wait, you know, an hour, a couple of hours before we can carry on with anything else. So then I've pinned the wing now to the back over the plan, and then what we have to do is cut the aileron to length, which is part W21, and chamfer as shown the leading edges to allow for movement. So obviously we chamfer a V into it, so we hinge in the middle and then we chamfer the top and bottoms to a V so it can move up and down like so. But don't hinge and don't fit to the wing at this stage, sand ready for covering. Okay, so yeah, so we'll cut out all the hinge slots and all the hinges and everything, we just won't glue the hinges in place. We'll wait till it's covered and then we'll just recut the slots and then pop the hinges in. So this kit sends mylar hinges. Whether I'll use them on the wing or not, I don't know. I probably will, because I've started to use this stuff on a few bits and bobs. This is a Superfatic. It's an ultra thin, foam safe, odorless, penetrating and bonds wood, foam, plastic, carbon fibre. Okay, so because it's thin, what you can do is you can use the stronger type hinges like the mylar hinges or a pinion hinge, which is plastic, and then you can put everything in place, make sure it's all like lined up, and like you would with a CA type hinge, you can actually run this stuff in and it'll wick in and it'll grab everything. But the beauty of doing this is with a CA, on a CA hinge, when you wick the CA into the hinge, it usually grabs at the first point and doesn't allow much of the CA to run back. So if you ever remove a CA glued hinge, you find that, let's say the hinge is 20mm long, only sort of 7 or 8mm of it is glued, whereas this stuff will get the whole lot. So I might use the mylar hinges and use this stuff because it is very, very good. Very good on plastic hinges, probably better than epoxy to a degree because of that wicking in thing, where it will actually run, it'll run in and it'll get everywhere because it doesn't set as fast as CA. It's about 10-20 minutes, I think. So yeah, so I've marked up, I've cut the aileron to length and I've marked up where the hinges go according to the plan. So what we need to do is, we've got the aileron marked up. What we need to do is we just need to get the centre of the aileron, and just using a thumb scribe, just put a line where those hinges go. Okay, and then just mark them off like so. And then all I do when I hinge is I just use a knife. I normally use my Swan Morton, my scalper, but I'm out of blades. I've got to get some more blades, so we're down to a Stanley and just cut through. Gently just cut through. Then once I've cut through, I'll take the hinge and try the hinge fits both on the aileron and the wing, and then I'll put the aileron onto the wing and check it all lines up, give it a sanding, make sure everything's fine, and then we'll move on to the next bits. I'm not going to film hinging these ailerons because there's plenty of videos out there doing it. So I'll continue now to cut these hinges ready, and I'll come back to you when we've got that done. See you in a bit. So we've now got the aileron hinged and in place. It just took a few minutes, but you can see the gap there is tight from the leading edge of the aileron to the trailing edge of the wing. So, and we've got very, very little movement, hardly any. So what we've got to do is we've got to chamfer a V at the top of the aileron and a V at the bottom of the aileron to give that chance to move. So what we'll do is take the aileron off, wing. As I said, I've just cut the slots and hinged it just so I know everything fits. So that's that. I'll pop them hinges over there. Okay, that's the Mylar type hinges they send. I'm not really a great fan of these. I think it's because the last time I used these, I used them on a limbo dancer, and because the ailerons and the elevator was all going like barn doors, I just don't think that they could live up to that sort of movement constantly. But they might be alright on something like this. That's just very, very little movement required in the aileron. So what I do, this is what I do when I shape up an aileron, is I've got my hinge lines there. So I'll just take a thumb scribe straight the way down, and you'll see that's gone through those hinge points. Okay, then what I'll do is about 3mm, I'll just run a line, again a thumb scribe, just all the way down the aileron, top and bottom. Okay, and then what I do is just take my plane and I just plane between the line on the centre and the line that I've just put there. The reason I do about 3mm is because the aileron is about 6mm thick, so it just evens it out. So we're just playing that down. So just about 3 passes is probably enough before we get the sanding block. You play my thumb there. I don't want to be removing any material off that, I kind of need that. And we'll take the sanding block and we'll just sand that down into a nice square taper, chamfer. That gives us a nice shape to allow movement on that aileron. So take the hinges, just slot them in. See, they're a nice snug, nice tight fit. In. I'll just pop it back on that wing. And then what we'll do, I'll just line that up, make sure it's all lined up nicely with that. What we'll do is I'll just take the sanding block and just make sure that we are following that profile. We don't want the aileron sitting up, we don't need to create any drag. Okay. And then one thing to do, now that aileron is sitting tight against there, is we just take that block and just sand across our plywood base of our wingtip into the aileron, and that will give us that nice tapered shape. and see, and once you hit the plywood, stop. Okay. Same here. And that's it. That's that. So that's that side of the wing done to that. Our aileron now moves up and down very well. Okay, that throw now. Right. So we'll tick that off. So the next thing on the instructions to do is glue in place wing servo lead exit support plate part W27. When dry, carefully cut out the balsa sheet from the circles to allow the servo leads through. Glue in place wing band reinforcing plate part W25. Okay, so this is part W27. It's just a little piece of plywood that goes there, and that just strengthens up the bottom of that wing for when the servo leads come through. So what we'll do, we mark around that like that, and then we'll just take a bit of CA. Doesn't need a lot. Just dab on a bit of CA around there. Okay, and then we'll offer that into place. Glue that on. And that part will be hidden in the fuselage of the model. Little dab of that. And then I'll come back to that later and just take out those two bits of balsa inside those circles, and that's where the leads for the servos will pop through. So now what we have to do is glue in place the wing band supporting pieces, another plywood piece. It's from the same sprue as part W27, and we just pop that on the trailing edge of that wing there. I've just centered it off, put a couple of marks on. So I'll do the same. We'll just mark that part there. We'll just give ourselves a reference of where to add the glue. Okay, same again, just a bit of CA. Not going too close to the edges, because again I don't want the glue to leak out. The glue doesn't leak out, I can do a much neater job of the covering. Okay. So we'll pop that on. Lining it up, and let that glue down, glue soak in, and just give that a blast of that. Okay, then what I'll do is just take a sanding stick and just clean that up, try the edge at the back there. Okay, that's that part done, on and fitted. So we've done that, and it just says, to shape the leading edge, but obviously we did that earlier. I wanted the leading edge shaped before I put on the wing tips. Shape the leading edge and give the entire wing a careful light sanding, ensuring that all ribs blend smoothly into the leading edge and trailing edges so it is ready for covering. Okay, so this wing is pretty much at that stage now. Regarding it being ready for covering, I always give everything a light sand over at the end anyway. I'll get it all built, get it sanded to shape, and then what I'll do is I'll just go over and I'll double check everything before I get the covering out, and just, you know, give it a last sort of smooth over and make sure it's all good. So that wing at that stage is now completed. We'll move up from the building board. I'll get you up here, guys, and we'll have a chat, and then we'll have a look at this wing in full. So I'll see you in a second. Okay then, modelers, we have a completed Coyote Coyote wing, albeit a little bit of final sanding just before covering. But just like any Slec kit, I've said it before, goes together really well, really easy. I've cut the holes out there for the servo leads. I just used a spike and just went around with the spike and just removed the Balsa, and then with the round file just cleaned it up. So that's all good. Our ailerons are all hinged, sanded to shape, everything's profiled, everything's clean, everything's nice, the wing's nicely balanced. Like I said, it's all gone sweet as a nut. It took a little bit longer than I would have liked. Yeah, one thing when you sort of filming your builds is you have to stop and get something set up and then do something else, and it just takes longer. The build process does. I'd probably build that wing in 3 or 4 hours if I wasn't filming, but it's took probably three times that amount of time. So, but it doesn't matter, it's done. We can put that to one side now. We can put it up in the racks, and it's ready for a final sand, which is just a very light sand because all the shaping's done, as I say. Yeah, it can go up in the racks. It can ready for covering, and we'll crack on with the tail sections in the next one. I think it's quite simple, the build on that. Should do that in one video, and then we can move on to fuselage, which will be really exciting. We can start then getting the model together, and like I said earlier on, get on to covering, which is my favourite bit, getting the covering done, getting it looking really nice, and we'll get it out flying, we'll get it on the slopes. So yeah, I was contemplating getting servos mounted and set up. It's simple. I don't know how I'm going to go about it yet, whether I'm just going to glue them in or if I'm going to fix them in or what, I don't know. It's weird to have for me to have a servo fixed in place that you can't access. I've obviously built this as per like the instructions. If I was going to change anything, I'd probably put some blocks on this and some screws and then screw that in place so I could take the servo out if needed. But I suppose worst case scenario, you just cut that panel of the film out and put a patch on it if necessary. So chances of a servo failing as well is well, I think it's pretty slim. I've never had one fail actually. So yeah, yeah, I was going to put them in, but can't find them. Don't know where they are. So that's put stop to that. I'll have to have a good look for them. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Look out for the next one, which will be the tail. And if you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe. All we do here is we just come up the shed, bash some balsa, good old-fashioned model building, nice and simple, nice and easy, and try and give out a few little tips along the way. I am going to put a video together about glues. I get asked a lot about what glues to use, what to use for hinging, what glues to use for certain bits of modelling and stuff. So I'm going to put a video together about all the different glues and what they do and what to use them for. But yeah, please like and subscribe. Seems really odd to me that subscriptions don't come in very quickly. It costs nothing to do, but you know, you sit in your shed and you build some models and nobody's really interested. Yet you get some guy in America who thinks he can fly but he can't, and he puts together some tutorial videos flying little foams out of a box, and he's picking up 200 subscribers a day. I mean, I don't understand it myself, but there you go. That's people for you and YouTube for you, isn't it? But yeah, wing done, tail next. Like and subscribe, keep watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.